Alrighty, folks, we're just going to jump in, but thank you so much for coming. This is our first webinar. Today we'll be going over how to work with Rhino, Grasshopper, a little bit of Touchdesigner, and Foveate. So, go to the next slide here. Here's the agenda for today. We're going to do a quick overview of Foveate, and we'll jump into some Rhino and Grasshopper, a little bit of Touchdesigner, then eventually we'll have a Q&A, and you can ask us a bunch of questions in the chat. I'm Ki-tae Kim. I'm one of the co-founders of Foveate. My background's in architecture and experiential design. So a lot of the product of Foveate is informed by my experience working on Archimedia installations, interactive installations at museums, galleries, touring, and then permanent installs as well. Ian Petrarca will be managing the chat. He's the other co-founder. Ian's experience is also similarly in experiential, more in things like theme parks. He's worked on some of the largest theme parks in the world, like Cartoon Network in Dubai, installations in permanent lobbies and things like that, executive briefing centers, so on and so forth. So a quick overview of Foveate. Foveate is a 3D presentation platform built for architects, designers, engineers, technologists to all be able to have one source of truth that they can visualize and build around. It's kind of a Frankenstein baby of Google Slides and Enscape, or Google Slides and Unreal, something like that. The idea is with Foveate, you can take your CAD files from apps like Rhino, SketchUp, Revit, 3ds Max, Vectorworks, be able to combine them with other kinds of media, let's say renders from Enscape, renders from V-Ray, videos, let's say from Touchdesigner, if you want to simulate content, screen content that's on LED walls or projectors, and then be able to create camera points of view in space that you can annotate and walk people through, just like a slide deck. So with Foveate, people make interactive presentations, digital twins, and virtual walkthroughs. And the whole idea is, instead of having all this information scattered in different places, we have a single source of truth using the 3D that we work in every day that everybody can intuitively walk through and understand what we're all trying to build together. So it doesn't matter what media format somebody has their work in. The idea is that everything that you would normally put into a slide deck presentation can now be anchored contextually into a spatial model, and then everybody can have visibility into the project. Doesn't matter if they're the architect, designer, technologist actually working in the 3D, or if they're a PM, a manager, director, producer who is overseeing the project that maybe doesn't usually have skills in the 3D, but they would get a lot of benefit from understanding what's happening. And then finally, clients and stakeholders, possibly the most important decision makers on a project, who oftentimes have zero technical knowledge, that have all the power in the project and need to be able to have the 3D information in order to make decisions better, faster, more clearly. The problem that Foveate's really trying to solve is, how can we communicate spaces more intuitively? So for example, right now, we've only been communicating spatial experiences via slide decks, so mostly PDFs, and then 360 tours became a thing. But the thing is, when you have all these disparate pieces of content in drawing form, where clients don't really understand scale, and they can't really see the the space from the plan drawing, for example, and then renders, which are not always the most realistic. For example, this Allbirds installation, they are more like collages than they are paintings, or than they are spatial experiences. And then finally, things like technical drawings, which a very few select group of people can actually read and understand what they're trying to convey. So for Foveate, we're trying to answer the question is, how can we build better? How can we communicate our creative ideas in a more intuitive, faster, and easier to update way? So for the benefits of using Foveate, we want people to have a more cost-effective way of communicating their designs. So instead of producing PDF slide decks, where generally people will spend 20 to 60 hours creating a PowerPoint or Google Slides deck, most of that is just spent formatting. They can use Foveate to easily create a 3D presentation right from the CAD that they're already working in, and then easily update that as they go on. So we know that creative folks like yourself work very iteratively, and need to be able to update their work quickly. I remember when I was working in experiential design, we'd have all sorts of changes last minute. And in order to update your InDesign deck, right, you now have to take all your renders again. You have to replace all the links with the same exact names inside your InDesign folder. And then you have to export your PDF, probably go to smallpdf.com, optimize and compress that, and then finally send that and show that to the client. Nowadays, all this work is remote, and people are still only able to present with basically screen sharing that's always choppy in Google Slides. So we're really trying to help people there with how can we help architects, designers, technologists work remotely and asynchronously. So with Foveate, you can drag and drop all your materials in, create your interactive presentation, invite your team members and clients, share it on a link, and then people can check in on it when they have time. So trying to be more efficient with how we're sharing ideas and working around everyone's busy schedules. And then another thing that we really are trying to do with Foveate is help you express your ideas more creatively. Architects, designers, technologists, you are the most creative people working on the most ambitious projects, things that no one's ever seen before, right? So they can be very difficult to understand. By using the 3D and walking people through it like as if you had built a physical model and handed it to them, we want to give everybody an intuitive experience that they would have had had we been 3D printing a model or something like that. And them understanding it is what allows them to fall in love with it and push forward on the design. And then finally, with Previz and pre-design in general, that's kind of where all the work needs to happen. And then you can reduce all the pains that would happen on site later once these decisions are made. So the idea is with something like Foveate, you have a sandbox where everybody can test ideas and talk about what's going to happen. And then later, once things actually get to site, down the line in a couple of months or even years, then all these problems have already been foreseen, and we can reduce the change orders and crazy changes, last minute changes that might have to happen on site, which are usually the most expensive part. Okay, so now we're going to jump into the demo phase here. So this is a scene of an installation that I worked on in Montreal Arsenal Gallery. This is called Encode Decode. For those of you who were at the Touch meetup the other night, I showed this project a little bit. But basically, it is a large-scale projection artwork that tracks people in space using a Connect Azure camera, and then a Touchdesigner media server behind this wall is running the installation. So what it actually ended up looking like in real life was something like this. This was for the artist Rafael Lozano Hemmer, amazing Mexican-Canadian media artist. This is Jesse, who was a production assistant there. He's here in the documentation, and he's being tracked by this camera that's kind of hidden here. And as he moves into the tracking area of the space, you can see the whole content moves with him. So this is can be kind of difficult to explain to someone who's not familiar with interactive installations what we're trying to build and how exactly this art piece would work. So Foveate is one of the ways that you can previs out an installation and be able to communicate what you're trying to build, where the projectors go, where is the media server, things like that. So normally on installation like this, you would get a map of the site from the, in this case, gallery. So this is Arsenal Gallery, and it's in Canada, so these units are many of them are metric. Some are feet and inches, but Canada gets kind of messy because we use both. So basically someone enters through here up these stairs, and there's a long hallway, and this is the main hall. I believe it used to be a factory, so this is the main factory floor that they come into, and then these blue bars, I believe, were the main I-beams in the space that you could clamp and attach things to. So this wall here was pre-existing. We basically had to use it, or rather we wanted to use it, and then we built this temporary wall here that was the same distance as this run here, 11.93 meters. So we could have a symmetrical projection area, and then this red cone here was the spread of the tracking camera. We'll do ZS for zoom selected in Rhino, and this is trying to show how people would enter the tracking area of the camera, and then that would affect the artwork. This is something that's kind of difficult to understand because you're jumping between all these applications. Because now you have, this CAD model in Rhino, you have these measurements, and you're telling someone, oh, there's a camera here, imagine that. This box is the computer, imagine that. Here are people. And then you would have to show, typically, your Touchdesigner project. So I'll go open Touch now. And here we go. And say, hey, this is the artwork. This is the computer running the exhibition. So normally, I would always try to pre-visualize things in Touchdesigner, but Touch's camera and 3D visualization capabilities leave some things to be desired. Not really what it's for, but here's a very basic previs out of what this kind of look like. So you have these two screens, an angle, you have a tracking area, and then you have a subject that is being tracked, and that affects the content on the screen. So normally you'd have to kind of jump between this and Rhino to explain to someone, hey, this is what it's going to look like. Maybe you render out the scene in Unreal or something, but then you're jumping between 3 different applications just to get across the thing that's, at the end of the day, pretty simple, and you don't really want to have to learn, Unreal or something like that where you can use video textures. So for Enscape, we love Enscape, and it's great for taking pictures of architecture, but then once you start getting to more immersive and interactive things, it's not really the right tool for that job. Here, what I can do is I take the output of this artwork. So these are the 2 screens, but normally when you're using multiple projectors or something like that, you have one big canvas that you were splitting up. So here we're going to simulate that. Go to our movie file out top here and set the video codec to H.265 NVIDIA GPU. Really, we just want to use an MP4 at the end of the day, so it could be H.264 if you're on a Mac. I have an NVIDIA GPU, so I want to use this one. And then the important thing is to keep your file extension in MP4 so that it can be read by Foveate easily. So we'll go ahead and name this, let's say, movie 2. We'll record this. We only need a couple seconds here just for this purposes. I've gone ahead and decreased the resolution of this video to 960 by 270, so it's very low res, but it does mean that it will be a much smaller file size. So you don't need to do this at the actual resolution of projectors, because that might be 4K or something like that. And you don't really need that. Here I've also gone in Rhino, and I've used the same video material. And you can see that we have this grid on here, so that just kind of tells you about the UV coordinates. Rhino 8 is really great also because they have a new UV editor. So if you type in UV editor, that will pop up, and that allows you to adjust the UVs of your project much faster and better than previously. So would recommend using that. If we go ahead here, export this whole scene. And the great thing about the GLB exporter in Rhino 8 as well is that it can do curves. So that's super helpful if you're working with curve data from CAD when you're drawing floor plans and things like this. So we'll go to GLB here, and we'll call this encode decode 3. And I'm just amazed how fast they got that to be. They really made that super fast. And I'm gonna go here. I've already started a scene here called encode decode. Doesn't have this model yet, but it has some moments set up. So this is an empty scene. But now I can go to my encode decode folder here, take that GLB, drag and drop that in. It's automatically going to spawn, get optimized with the floor plan, with the curve data showing that cone, and all this stuff. So now we have this GLB here. We can see we compressed it down to 3 megabytes. So Foveate automatically takes your scene and tries to compress it as much as possible without altering anything in it. So your meshes don't lose any of their detail. And we'll go ahead now and take our video output from Touch, drag and drop that in. That'll appear, and go ahead and set that onto our mesh here. Now I've already created these moments inside of the scene. What we can do is press the moment labels, and it creates these hotspots for each point of view. So we'll go to main exhibition area. You can see what this looks like from here. Turn off the labels. Jump to the next point of view. And then be able to see our content right on the screen here. Now another thing that I've done is I've already pre-placed some other elements to explain this design further. So I have these other assets here. Oops, let me just refresh this. Yes, so this is supposed to be 2 projectors. So here I've turned on these assets, which are these projectors in space. So I just drag and drop these in. These are projectors that I got from grabcad.com, and they're supposed to be Panasonic projectors. And then we can jump to this moment here. And then to make this look more like a projector, we'll just go ahead and turn on bloom. So anything with an emissive material, bloom will get applied to it, and bloom is this kind of glowing effect. So this just makes the projectors really look more like projectors. This is how we could describe, this is projector B, this is projector A, and understand which wall that they're supposed to be shining onto. So that's projector A, we're looking at it. That's projector B now, looking at that. You could even go ahead and make a moment, looking at the wall from the perspective of the projector, so someone can really understand which one is which, for example. I've done that for tracking camera here. So this is a Connect Azure, and this moment is describing, the field of view of this camera. So now you can tell this camera is on this wall. It's going to use this USB-C 10-meter cable that goes to the media server. If we jump to the media server moment, you can see the media server here. And then if I wanted to, for example, I have a photo of the media server that we used on that project. I can go ahead and go to the moments and pick an image and turn off. I could either pick an image so it appears in the moment label, or I can just move this image. Oops. Didn't mean to move this guy. I'll just reset that. Lock it. I'll just move this image here to showcase what this media server setup is supposed to look like. And someone can click this and understand, oh, here's the actual media server. We got a couple data path FX4s here. It's running Ethernet. It's all being run from this console. Yes, so this digital wall, it can have a video mapped to it because we created this material called video here that's on these surfaces. Any material called video, whether you make it in Rhino, you make it in Blender, you make it in SketchUp, it will get recognized by Foveate as a material that you can select any video and then pick a mesh to play on. Hope that clarified that question. So now, if I had another video option here, I can go ahead and change that content. So now I can show multiple videos on this wall. So your media server here, and you can also paste links inside of moments. So for example, there's a very specific cable that had to be used for this project in order to connect that camera to the media server. And Touchdesigner was the software that was taking the camera input, tracking people with that, and then updating the installation based upon their position in space. So if you click this link here, this now links directly to that specific cable. You can see this was an OBS bot, USB-A to USB-C cable. That was 65 feet long, cost $100, but this is what we needed for the project. And then someone can jump to the camera, understand how high it's supposed to be installed from the ground. So in this case, 3.6 meters. So like 11-ish, 12-ish feet from the ground. And that was so it could have the proper cone to view these people at. So this cone that I modeled is ended up being different than what was in the project, but you get the idea. Then of course, this is where we've invited people to the scene so they can view it with us. So this is where you could share this publicly with people, or you can make it private. We understand that's very important for certain projects where you want to keep it secret. So with Foveate, you can make scenes private like this, and then there's permissions per person as well. So if I go and make somebody a viewer, they can just view the scene and have access to it. It's now no longer publicly shareable. So if somebody goes to this link, this share link, they can't see it unless they're logged in. And viewers can simply look at a scene. They can't create moments and comment on it. They can't add assets. They can just see it. And then you can also embed Foveate scenes onto your website or other applications, custom web pages. So for folks in the Touchdesigner land, they can embed a Foveate scene, into a web page that connects to Touch. So if they wanted to have some like WebRTC, something like that, they'll be able to control their installation via web page and then get a live update of the scene in Foveate as well. Let's just go to our key takeaways from this webinar. So with Foveate, what we really try to do is create an interface that's very intuitive. So with Foveate, you don't have to learn how to code. You can just use your 3D and CAD files, video files from Rhino, Grasshopper, Touchdesigner, Revit, ArchiCAD, SketchUp, Blender, 3ds Max, what have you, and be able to create a 3D presentation that's easily updatable without really a steep learning curve. It's actually very simple. We designed everything to be drag and drop and very easy to use, just like PowerPoint. But you don't have to worry about formatting and kind of all like the busy work that comes with making a slide deck. With Foveate, we really want to help people communicate their creative ideas better. So Foveate is designed to be a more immersive experience than a 360 tour or a regular PDF slide deck, right? It's supposed to have all your 3D, your CAD, your videos, could have audio, your renders, and your PDFs all inside of one spot that give people full context to a project. So instead of jumping around from file to file to file and them having to sort of assemble a total vision in their head, it's all in one place. All the media is in one place. You can easily replace any of the assets that are part of your project, and they're just in one link that always stays the same. And then Foveate has all the roles and permissions so that you can keep projects organized. Only certain people need to be on certain projects. Not everybody needs exposure to it. This is a good way that people can be editors and viewers, and links can be kept private until you're ready to go public and show them publicly to people, whether that's through marketing and press, biz dev, what have you. And then Foveate's shareable everywhere. So the idea is that nobody has to download an app anymore in order to view a 3D experience. These days you kind of need an app even to open a PDF really well, and sign it, stuff like that. So we really want to move away from native apps in that sense and make sure that Foveate scenes are shareable everywhere to every device. Doesn't matter if you're on Mac, PC, Android, or iPad. You can just send a link and someone can open a scene on their device and start viewing it in a few short seconds. You can send a link in your favorite chat apps like Slack, Microsoft Teams, email, embed them into websites, what have you. And that link always stays the same unless you make a new scene. But yeah, thank you everybody so much for coming to this webinar. This is our first one, first of many. Really great to have you all here. I hope I answered all of your questions. Please feel free to email us at team@foveate.com if you have any more questions, or if you go to our website, you're welcome to request a demo or meeting with us. You know, we can give personalized demos to certain companies, you know, more tailored to your use case and things like that. And also, we have a 14-day free trial now. So we've opened up Foveate so that anyone can just sign up and try it out, and you get access to it for 14 days for free. And try it out to your heart's extent, and let us know what features that you would want, or maybe what funky use cases you have. But yes, thank you so much for coming. We can have a Q&A session now as well. Now we can open up the floor if people have questions. Please type them in the chat, and I'll answer anything. Perfect. That's great to hear, Gum. Yeah, we really want Foveate to be a super fast and easy way that you can communicate spaces. So you don't really need to know how to render. The whole idea is, even if you can model in something like Blender, you know, a free app, you can make a pretty compelling spatial presentation just from that model. And we hope that Foveate's the way that everyone can align around one idea and kind of get excited about this project because they understand it better. Whereas if you send them a PDF of 20 renders, you know, they still might not understand it